The Horsemeat scandal hasn't yet decided what it is. It started off as horsemeat DNA, then it became actual horsemeat. Now it's bute, which is something vets put in horses. Nobody knows whether it only applies to beef or to lamb or to anything else. Nobody knows whether it's a retailer scandal, a manufacturer scandal, a processor scandal. Is it UK? Is it European? So it's like all these great scandals. The first thing you have to do is actually wait until you find out what it is. I saw somebody from a famous retailer talking about only using pure British beef who just got completely nailed by the interview. He said, but you've got a low price range which is anything but British beef. So you've got to be very careful about how you address this. The most important thing is information. So you've got to have fantastically good monitoring to try and understand what is being said and what people are putting out. It's running non-stop on television and non-stop in the press and non-stop in social media. So you've got to monitor it very well. You've got to then have some people around who've got judgment and who can tell you of the things that are going on, what matters and what doesn't. Because 90% of what's being said is just sensationalised rubbish, to which the answer is, so what? But, you know, it'll take its course and people will be hurt and damaged by it. Brands will have their reputations damaged, their sales will go down, and people will talk about it in 2 years' time, just as they did when we were all going to get CJD. I seem to remember that time one of the Scottish experts said there would be 2.5 million cases of CJD, and I think there have been 12. So, you know, a sense of perspective is pretty important in all these things. Well, in the old days, before people invented the web and digital technology, we used to talk about word of mouth. And we used to always recognise that word of mouth was fantastically important and the best way to spread a message or a story or whatever. Nowadays it isn't that, it's exactly the opposite, because most of what appears on social media is just patent rubbish. It's either prejudice, biased, unpleasantness, or it's ill-informed, inaccurate and completely wrong information. And the degree of noise that it makes, again, has to be judged. You have to decide whether the noise that it's making is actually going to affect anybody, or whether people are just going to write it off like they do traffic noise as you walk around the street. But unfortunately, you have to monitor it, you have to look at it, you have to interpret it, and you have to look for trends to see those things which are catching on and those things which aren't. Actually, the only way to manage a crisis is to give very accurate information, make absolutely sure that you're aware of what damage it's doing for you and improving that damage. And you would expect me to say this, wouldn't you? The only people who know how to help you do that are public relations companies, because they have true objectivity and because they are in the business of dealing with how you pass messages to people in order to influence their attitudes and behaviour.